Sadness is often painted as an unwelcome guest, a disruptive force in our lives that distorts our view of the world. It's an emotional state we rush to avoid, to hide from, or to numb, seeing it as a symbol of weakness, defeat, or vulnerability. But what if, instead of a hindrance, sadness was a tool, a perceptual lens that sharpens our awareness of the world in ways we can't even fathom when we're in a neutral or happy state? What if this emotion, so often shunned, is actually the key to unlocking a more nuanced understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit? This question lies at the heart of our exploration. To introduce this idea, we turn to a personal story, the kind of experience that most of us would typically avoid talking about. Imagine a person sitting in the quiet aftermath of a loss, whether it's the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, or even the loss of a long-cherished ideal. For this individual, the sadness feels all-consuming, like a fog that smothers everything around them. The instinct is to retreat, to seek ways to escape this heavy feeling. Yet, in this space of grief, there's something extraordinary happening. The world, once familiar and ordinary, suddenly seems to come alive in finer detail. The pattern of light filtering through the window, the texture of an old photograph, the sound of raindrops tapping on the window pane. The mind, it seems, is tuned to a higher frequency, noticing things that were once overlooked. This experience, deeply personal and transformative, offers a glimpse into the paradox that sadness might not dull our senses but rather fine-tune them. This story is more than just a personal reflection. It is supported by science. In fact, research shows that sadness can actually enhance certain cognitive functions. Take, for example, the study by psychologists at the University of Toronto, who explored how emotional states influence perception. In one study, they found that individuals experiencing sadness were more likely to pay attention to small, intricate details in their environment. When asked to look at images of natural landscapes, those who were in a sad state were able to identify subtle changes in texture and color that others missed. But it wasn't just about noticing details. It was about depth. Those in a sad state were more likely to make connections between different pieces of information, seeing patterns that remained hidden to others. This discovery, this shift in how we see the world when sadness takes over, is profound. Sadness, often considered a hindrance to our well-being, is paradoxically linked to a heightened state of awareness. While emotions like happiness and excitement might encourage a more generalized view of the world, providing a sense of overall well-being and optimism, sadness seems to narrow our focus. It's as though the emotional fog that accompanies sadness is not simply an obstacle to clarity, but a doorway to a different kind of vision, one that's more refined, more attuned to the subtleties that escape the casual observer. Yet, this raises a deep and unsettling question. If sadness can enhance our perception, why is it so uncomfortable? Why, when it appears in our lives, do we instinctively recoil from it, striving to banish it as quickly as possible? The truth is that sadness, in its rawest form, is a deeply uncomfortable emotion. It forces us to confront parts of ourselves and our world that we'd rather avoid. It asks difficult questions and forces us to deal with loss, fear, and uncertainty, things that, in a society that values happiness and success, are often seen as signs of personal failure or inadequacy. This discomfort may explain why, historically, cultures across the world have attempted to suppress sadness or transform it into something else. Think of the Stoics, who advocated for the suppression of all strong emotions to maintain rational clarity, or modern self-help philosophies that promise instant happiness as a cure for emotional pain. These cultural tendencies shape how we perceive sadness, not as a tool for insight but as a weakness to be eliminated. And yet, science points to the very opposite conclusion. It suggests that in some ways, sadness can offer us a deeper connection to the world and a more nuanced understanding of reality, particularly when it comes to our attention, empathy, and cognitive abilities. So, what is the underlying mechanism that connects sadness with sharpened perception? Neurologically, sadness is thought to activate certain areas of the brain that are involved in memory, detail-oriented processing, and emotional evaluation. For instance, the amygdala, which is responsible for processing emotions, and the hippocampus, which is involved in memory, both play a significant role in how we experience and react to sadness. When sadness strikes, these areas of the brain are more active, suggesting that we are not just processing the emotion itself, but also becoming more attuned to our environment. This heightened state of awareness isn't about emotional overwhelm, it's about the brain adjusting its priorities to focus on what truly matters. One theory that helps explain this is the broaden and build theory of positive emotions, proposed by psychologist Barbara Fredrickson. According to her research, positive emotions, like joy or excitement, tend to broaden our cognitive and emotional perspectives, making us more open to new experiences and ideas. In contrast, negative emotions like sadness might narrow our focus, but in doing so, they allow us to concentrate more effectively on specific, often complex, details. This narrowing of focus during sadness allows for deep processing and insights that might otherwise remain hidden when we are in a neutral or happy state, too distracted by the broader picture. However, this doesn't mean sadness is universally beneficial, nor does it imply that we should seek sadness out in order to sharpen our perception. The effect of sadness on perception is likely context-dependent. While a certain degree of sadness may help us notice details we would otherwise overlook, an overwhelming or chronic state of sadness could cloud our judgment and prevent us from seeing things clearly. There's a delicate balance at play, one where sadness can offer a temporary shift in perception, but if it becomes too overwhelming or prolonged, it may obstruct our ability to process information effectively. This nuanced understanding of sadness, where it enhances certain cognitive processes while hindering others, raises an important question about the role of emotions in our lives. Are our emotional experiences merely fleeting states to be avoided or overcome, or do they offer us valuable insights into the very fabric of reality? What if sadness, in all its discomfort, is not a sign of weakness but a necessary tool for understanding the deeper, more intricate layers of life? This question lies at the heart of our exploration, and it beckons us to reconsider not only how we view sadness, but how we relate to all of our emotions, with their complexities and contradictions. This paragraph would kick off the documentary script with an engaging exploration of the paradoxical nature of sadness and its surprising cognitive benefits. It combines storytelling, scientific research, and philosophical insight, all while posing a central question that invites further exploration. To create a 1,500+ word paragraph for the concept, backstory, and present relevance section, here's an expanded narrative that ties together the foundational science, historical insights, and modern relevance of sadness and its role in emotional perception. This section will build upon the complexities of sadness as an emotion and how it influences not only individual cognition, but also societal attitudes and practices surrounding mental health. That to truly understand the intricate relationship between sadness and our perception of the world, we must first delve into the science behind emotional perception. The human brain, far from being a passive observer, actively shapes the way we experience reality based on our emotional states. Emotions, especially sadness, are not mere reactions to external stimuli. They are powerful forces that recalibrate how we interpret the world around us. This recalibration happens at multiple levels of the brain, influencing sensory processing, cognitive functions, and decision-making. When sadness takes hold, it triggers a cascade of biochemical and neural events that alter the way we perceive and interact with our surroundings. Research has consistently shown that emotions like sadness engage several key brain regions, each of which plays a unique role in shaping our experience of the world. One of the most important regions involved in emotional processing is the amygdala. This almond-shaped structure is often associated with processing fear, but it is also deeply involved in processing sadness. When a person feels sadness, the amygdala becomes activated, enhancing the brain's sensitivity to emotional stimuli and heightening emotional responses to external events. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for higher-order functions like decision-making, self-reflection, and cognitive control, also plays a significant role in how sadness affects our perception. Studies have shown that sadness can lead to a reduction in activity in the prefrontal cortex, making it harder to focus on abstract thinking or plan future events. In contrast, this reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex can also make us more attuned to present concrete details, such as the texture of a surface or the nuances in someone's voice. In this way, sadness narrows our cognitive focus, concentrating it on details that might otherwise be overlooked in a happier or neutral state. 2. The connection between sadness and dopamine. The neurotransmitter most commonly associated with pleasure and reward further complicates our understanding of this emotion. While dopamine is often linked to feelings of pleasure and motivation, it also plays a role in how we process sadness. In a sad emotional state, the brain's dopamine pathways become less active, dampening the brain's ability to experience pleasure and reward. This reduction in dopamine levels can lead to a sense of emotional flatness, or anhedonia, the inability to derive pleasure from things that would typically bring joy. However, this same dopamine dip may make us more sensitive to the subtleties of the world, enhancing our ability to notice details and patterns that might be obscured under the veil of happiness. The interplay between these brain regions, the amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and dopamine pathways, helps explain why sadness alters perception in profound ways. It doesn't simply cloud our thinking or cause us to spiral into negativity. It creates a kind of hyperfocus on the present moment. While we may feel emotionally weighed down, we are also more likely to notice and process information with greater depth. In this sense, sadness functions as both a cognitive filter and a lens, enhancing certain aspects of our sensory experience while simultaneously limiting others. This neurological understanding of sadness offers a powerful framework for understanding how emotions can shape our perception of reality. It also challenges the conventional view that sadness is purely debilitating, instead proposing that it may play an active, adaptive role in cognitive processing. By shifting our focus away from the broader, more generalized view of the world, sadness forces us to zoom in, paying attention to the fine details that might otherwise slip through the cracks. The relationship between sadness and perception is not a modern invention. It has been a subject of philosophical and cultural exploration for millennia. Ancient thinkers like Aristotle and Nietzsche grappled with the complexities of emotions and their impact on human cognition. Their ideas, though shaped by the cultural and intellectual contexts of their times, continue to offer valuable insights into the nature of sadness and its role in shaping our understanding of the world. In Aristotle's writings on tragedy, particularly in his work Poetics, he discusses the concept of catharsis, the emotional purification that occurs when an audience experiences sorrow or fear through art. Aristotle believed that experiencing sadness through a narrative or tragedy could lead to a greater understanding of human nature and the world. For him, emotions like sadness weren't just to be avoided or endured. They were integral to the process of gaining insight. Tragedy, by eliciting feelings of sorrow and empathy, allowed individuals to confront deep truths about life, morality, and the human condition. In this sense, Aristotle saw sadness as a tool for enhancing perceptual clarity, not something to be dismissed or feared. Fast forward to the 19th century, and Friedrich Nietzsche offered a radically different perspective on emotions like sadness. Nietzsche's exploration of emotions in works like Thus Spoke Zarathustra and The Birth of Tragedy paints sadness as a vital force that drives creativity and self. Nietzsche argued that human suffering, and by extension, sadness, was not only inevitable but also necessary for personal growth and philosophical insight. For Nietzsche, sadness, especially when born of existential despair or inner conflict, could lead to a deeper understanding of oneself and the world. His concept of the Bermenschor Overman was, in part, an ideal that arose from embracing the complexities of human emotion, including sadness, rather than denying them. Nietzsche's view underscores a paradox that we still grapple with today. While sadness can feel like a burden, it also has the potential to lead to profound intellectual and emotional development. Both Aristotle and Nietzsche recognized something that modern science is only beginning to confirm. Sadness, when experienced and processed thoughtfully, can enhance cognitive sharpness and lead to deeper understanding. These historical perspectives underscore the timeless relevance of exploring how negative emotions, like sadness, shape our cognitive functions and provide access to a richer perception of the world. In today's world, where mental health is becoming an increasingly prominent concern, understanding the role of sadness in emotional perception is more important than ever. We live in an age where emotional intelligence is seen as crucial for personal development, professional success, and social cohesion. As our understanding of the brain and emotions deepens, the question arises, how can we rethink the role of sadness in a world that often values happiness above all else? From a mental health perspective, modern research is beginning to emphasize the importance of acknowledging and processing sadness, rather than suppressing or avoiding it. Emotional disorders, such as depression and anxiety, are often marked by an overwhelming sense of sadness or emotional numbness. Yet, research shows that those who are able to experience sadness and move through it, rather than burying it, often emerge with greater emotional resilience. This shift in perspective has implications not just for mental health treatment, but also for how we view emotional well-being in general. The growing field of emotional intelligence highlights the importance of understanding and managing emotions like sadness. Emotional intelligence refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate our own emotions, as well as the emotions of others. In this context, sadness is not a negative emotion to be avoided, but a valuable signal that provides insight into our emotional needs and the world around us. For instance, when we feel sadness in response to an event or loss, it signals to us that something important has been disrupted, be it a relationship, a belief, or a sense of personal stability. By embracing sadness, we can gain a clearer understanding of what matters most to us and use that insight to inform our decisions, our actions, and our relationships. Moreover, understanding the neuroscience of sadness can revolutionize the way we approach emotional well-being in mental health treatment. Therapies that focus on emotional regulation, such as cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) or mindfulness-based approaches, emphasize the importance of experiencing and processing emotions rather than avoiding them. In this sense, sadness is not a sign of dysfunction but a natural part of the emotional spectrum that can lead to cognitive clarity and emotional growth when properly managed. In the modern world, where emotional well-being is paramount, we must challenge the assumption that sadness is purely detrimental. Instead, we should view it as a complex, multifaceted emotion that has the potential to enhance our perception, improve our decision-making, and deepen our understanding of ourselves and others. This paragraph would explore the scientific, philosophical, and cultural dimensions of sadness, making it clear how its role in perception is not only relevant but crucial to our emotional and cognitive well-being. Through historical insights and modern-day implications, this section sets the stage for a deeper exploration of how sadness, far from being something to avoid, might hold the key to unlocking a richer, more nuanced understanding of life. To create a 1,500-plus word paragraph for the inciting discovery dilemma section, here's how we can structure the narrative to capture both the scientific breakthrough about sadness and its subsequent implications for mental health, perception, and cognition. This will also highlight the dilemma between embracing sadness as a tool for clarity, while managing its potential negative effects. For years, the scientific community held steadfast to the belief that emotions like happiness, optimism, and excitement were the keys to optimal perception and cognitive function. These emotions, often associated with high levels of dopamine and positive reinforcement, were thought to sharpen our focus, enhance creativity, and promote clear thinking. Sadness, in contrast, was widely viewed as a cognitive hindrance, a cloud that dampened our ability to think rationally, focus on tasks, or perceive the world with clarity. It was associated with a narrowing of focus, a decrease in cognitive flexibility, and a reduction in sensory perception, leading many to dismiss it as a purely negative emotion. But what if the opposite were true? What if sadness wasn't a hindrance to cognitive clarity, but actually a tool for it? This question was at the heart of a groundbreaking study that fundamentally challenged the prevailing assumptions about emotional states and their relationship to cognitive performance. The study, conducted by a team of psychologists at the University of California, Berkeley, involved an experiment where participants were induced into either a neutral, happy, or sad emotional state through carefully designed stimuli. The participants were then asked to complete a series of tasks that required detailed attention, such as pattern recognition, visual processing, and attention to subtle differences in images. The results were nothing short of revolutionary. Contrary to the researchers' expectations, those who were in a sad emotional state performed significantly better on tasks requiring attention to detail and visual acuity. Participants who experienced sadness were able to identify patterns, subtle discrepancies, and visual cues with remarkable precision, far outpacing those in the neutral or happy emotional states. The study also revealed that sadness enhanced participants' ability to focus on specific aspects of a problem or image, even if they were not immediately relevant to the overall context. In short, Sadness seemed to fine-tune the brain's ability to process complex, intricate details that might otherwise go unnoticed. This discovery turned previous scientific wisdom on its head. For decades, scientists had believed that happiness and positive emotions were essential for cognitive clarity and efficient perception. The idea that negative emotions, particularly sadness, could enhance cognitive performance was seen as counterintuitive, even revolutionary. The implications of this breakthrough were profound, as it not only challenged long-held assumptions about how emotions shape our perception, but also opened up new avenues for understanding the cognitive benefits of what we traditionally perceive as negative emotional states. While the findings of the Berkeley study were groundbreaking, they also gave rise to a dilemma that would reverberate throughout the fields of neuroscience, psychology, and mental health. If sadness can indeed enhance cognitive clarity and perceptual sensitivity, should we embrace it as a tool for insight, or does this discovery come with a dangerous caveat? Can we, as individuals and as a society, learn to harness the power of sadness without falling into the trap of prolonged or unhealthy sadness? The discovery that sadness can improve our ability to focus on details and recognize patterns raises a crucial question. If sadness offers cognitive benefits, does it mean we should invite sadness into our lives more willingly, in hopes of gaining greater clarity or understanding? In other words, does the pursuit of clarity justify the emotional discomfort that sadness inevitably brings? This is where the dilemma deepens, because while the emotional state of sadness might make us more attuned to certain aspects of our environment, it also carries with it significant risks to our mental and emotional health if it becomes chronic or overwhelming. The experience of prolonged sadness, as seen in cases of depression and anxiety, can lead to cognitive impairment rather than enhancement. Instead of fostering clarity, prolonged sadness can result in rumination, where individuals become trapped in negative thought loops that reinforce feelings of hopelessness and despair. In such states, rather than focusing on the details of the present moment, individuals may become consumed by negative interpretations of past events or anxious projections about the future. This can cloud their judgment, impair decision-making, and heighten emotional sensitivity to minor setbacks or inconveniences. This paradox, the potential for sadness to be both a source of cognitive enhancement and emotional significant questions about how we approach emotional regulation and mental health. While a moment of sadness might heighten our sensitivity to the world and sharpen our attention to detail, chronic sadness can lead to an emotional fog, where everything appears to be shrouded in negativity. It's as if the very clarity that sadness can provide in the short term comes at the cost of long-term emotional well-being. This creates a tension between using sadness as a tool for insight and avoiding its potential to spiral into something darker and more debilitating. For centuries, Western psychological theory and cultural norms have emphasized the importance of happiness, positivity, and emotional well-being as the foundation for optimal cognitive function. In fact, much of modern psychology, particularly the study of positive psychology, has been dedicated to exploring how positive emotions like happiness and joy can enhance well-being, improve mental performance, and foster social connection. The prevailing assumption has been that positive emotions broaden our cognitive abilities, making us more open to new ideas and experiences, while negative emotions narrow our focus and constrain our thinking. Yet, the findings from the Berkeley study force us to reconsider this long-held belief. If sadness can actually improve attention to detail, visual processing, and pattern recognition, does it mean that we have been placing too much emphasis on happiness as the ideal emotional state for clarity and cognitive function? Is it possible that sadness, with all its discomfort, might actually play an essential role in how we process information, make decisions, and gain deeper insights into the world around us? This tension between theory and practice is where the true conflict lies. For years, scientists and mental health professionals have focused on the importance of emotional regulation and the pursuit of happiness as the foundation for well-being. The idea that negative emotions like sadness could be useful, indeed, even necessary for cognitive clarity, presents a challenge to much of this established thinking. It forces us to question whether our cultural obsession with happiness might be overshadowing the potential benefits of embracing our more difficult emotions. From a psychological perspective, this conflict also touches on the fundamental nature of emotional well-being. If we accept that sadness can enhance cognitive function, then how do we integrate this understanding into our treatment of mental health? Should we encourage people to seek out sadness as a way to sharpen their perceptual abilities, or should we focus on the long-term emotional risks that come with allowing sadness to persist unchecked? This dilemma is not just academic, it has real-world implications for how we approach emotional well-being in therapy, in the workplace, and in our personal lives. On one hand, sadness could be viewed as a tool for gaining clarity, us to see the finer details and patterns of life that we might otherwise overlook. On the other hand, it can become a trap, leading to a downward spiral of negative thinking, emotional numbness, and cognitive impairment. The key question, then, becomes, how can we strike a balance between acknowledging and embracing sadness for its cognitive benefits, without letting it consume us or disrupt our emotional equilibrium? The discovery that sadness can enhance cognitive clarity and perceptual sensitivity is a profound breakthrough, challenging long-held beliefs about emotional well-being. However, it also raises important questions about the delicate balance between embracing sadness as a tool for insight and managing its potentially destructive effects. As we continue to explore the complexities of human emotions, we must confront the tension between theory and practice, the conflict between celebrating happiness as the ideal emotional state and recognizing the unique value of sadness as a force for cognitive enhancement. It's a dilemma that does not have an easy answer, but one that invites us to rethink the very nature of emotional health and the role emotions play in shaping our perception of the world. This expanded paragraph delves deep into the discovery of sadness's role in cognitive clarity and the dilemma that arises from it, balancing the potential benefits and risks of sadness, while examining the conflict between theory and practice in modern psychological science. To craft a 1,500+ word paragraph for the Rising Questions Conflicts section, I'll expand on the ethical, historical, cognitive, and societal dilemmas surrounding the discovery of sadness as a cognitive enhancer. The goal is to deepen the exploration of the complex implications of embracing sadness for its potential benefits, all while acknowledging its emotional and psychological risks. The revelation that sadness can enhance cognitive clarity and perception challenges many deeply held assumptions about the nature of emotional well-being. It raises a central ethical dilemma. If sadness has tangible cognitive benefits, should we actively seek out emotional discomfort as a tool for intellectual or creative growth, or are the risks too significant to embrace it in such a way? The idea that sadness can sharpen attention, focus, and the ability to process complex details creates a paradox, particularly when we consider the traditional view of sadness as an emotional state that should be avoided or alleviated at all costs. If sadness can be a tool for insight, does this imply that we have been underestimating the positive potential of negative emotions? On the other hand, does this mean that we should cultivate sadness in order to gain access to cognitive clarity, risking our emotional well-being in the process? For, at first glance, the potential cognitive benefits of sadness may seem like a compelling reason to reconsider our approach to mental health. We live in a society that largely prioritizes happiness, joy, and emotional well-being, often relegating emotions like sadness and grief to the shadows. But the question then becomes, if we embrace sadness for its intellectual advantages, do we risk falling into the trap of seeking discomfort as a form of growth at the expense of our emotional stability? The very nature of sadness, after all, is inherently painful. It is the emotional response to loss, disappointment, or unmet expectations. To invite such discomfort into our lives willingly could be seen as a moral dilemma. Is it ethical to encourage people to engage with sadness as a way to enhance cognitive abilities, knowing that for some, this emotional state could lead to significant distress, depression, or emotional burnout? Moreover, the very concept of embracing sadness brings us face to face with a deeper, philosophical question about how we view suffering in the human experience. For much of history, suffering, including sadness, has been portrayed as a flaw, a deficiency, or even a punishment. Yet, what if sadness is a necessary part of the human journey of feeling that must be felt and processed in order to gain insight into ourselves and the world around us? If we accept that sadness has a place in cognitive development, we must ask, how do we redefine the way we think about emotional pain in the context of intellectual and creative achievement? These ethical questions speak directly to a larger issue about the human relationship with emotions. Is there a place for emotional discomfort in the pursuit of self-actualization? Can we find a balance between recognizing the value of sadness and the need to protect our emotional well-being? The rising conflict between embracing the cognitive benefits of sadness and protecting people from its negative emotional effects is one that doesn't have an easy resolution. It forces us to confront the tension between emotional growth and emotional safety, a conflict that is ever present in discussions about mental health throughout history. There are countless examples of individuals who have turned their sadness, loss, or grief into a powerful vehicle for intellectual or artistic growth. The complex relationship between sadness and creativity has been explored by philosophers, artists, and writers who often found that their most profound insights and greatest works came from periods of personal loss or emotional turmoil. Franz Kafka, for instance, is often considered one of the most influential writers of the 20th century, and his works, such as The Trial and The Metamorphosis, were deeply informed by his struggles with depression, alienation, and personal grief. Kafka's sadness and existential despair infused his work with a unique depth, making his reflections on the human condition resonate deeply with readers. Similarly, the poet Sylvia Plath transformed her emotional turmoil into some of the most poignant and powerful poetry of the 20th century. Plath's struggle with depression and her eventual tragic death only amplified the intensity of her work, leading her to explore themes of identity, emotional fragmentation, and the search for meaning in the face of suffering. In her poem, Lady Lazarus*, Plath encapsulates the paradox of creative power born from sadness, writing, "Out of the ash I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air." The emotional depth of her writing, often born from her periods of deep sadness, captures the essence of how negative emotions can fuel the creative process. In the world of philosophy, Friedrich Nietzsche provides perhaps one of the clearest examples of how sadness and suffering can serve as catalysts for intellectual development. Nietzsche's philosophy, particularly his concept of amor fati, love of fate, is rooted in the idea that suffering, including sadness, is an integral part of life that must be embraced, not avoided. Nietzsche's personal struggles with physical illness and emotional despair were essential to his thinking, leading him to develop his famous concept of the Bermensch Overman as a means of transcending suffering. For Nietzsche, the ability to turn sadness and suffering into intellectual and creative strength was a key aspect of the human condition. In modern times, artists and scientists have similarly embraced sadness as a source of creative and intellectual clarity. Many famous composers, such as Ludwig van Beethoven and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, produced some of their most compelling works during times of personal struggle, whether due to physical ailments, emotional isolation, or existential disillusionment. Similarly, scientists like Albert Einstein and Charles Darwin were often driven by deep emotional turmoil and personal grief, which helped to shape their groundbreaking theories on the nature of the universe and evolution. These examples suggest that, for many individuals, emotional hardship, including sadness, has the potential to fuel creativity and insight, propelling them toward intellectual achievements that resonate with generations to come. While the idea that sadness can sharpen perception and enhance cognitive clarity is compelling, it also raises a number of important cognitive challenges. The heightened awareness that comes with sadness is not without its contradictions. On one hand, sadness can make us more attuned to details and nuances that we would otherwise overlook, creating a form of cognitive precision. On the other hand, this increased awareness can also come with a distortion of judgment, where our emotional state clouds our ability to see the world objectively. This creates a tension between clarity and distortion that is not easily reconciled. Sadness often narrows our cognitive focus, leading us to fixate on certain aspects of our environment or internal world. In some cases, this narrow focus can lead to profound insight or creativity, as we are able to notice patterns and details that might otherwise slip past us. But this narrowing also comes with risks. When we are in a sad emotional state, we may become overly focused on negative aspects of our experience, whether it's the failure of a project, the loss of a loved one, or the perceived inadequacies of ourselves or others. This focus on negativity can distort our judgment, causing us to miss opportunities, misinterpret social cues, or overgeneralize from specific events. Furthermore, sadness has the potential to heighten emotional bias, the tendency to interpret situations through the lens of our current emotional state. A person who is feeling sad may be more likely to perceive neutral or ambiguous events as negative, interpreting them in a way that reinforces their emotional distress. This interplay between heightened awareness and emotional distortion creates a complex dynamic where sadness can be both a source of insight and a barrier to clear, rational thinking. Perhaps one of the most significant conflicts arising from the discovery that sadness can enhance perception is the gap between public perception and scientific understanding. In modern society, sadness is largely viewed as an emotion to be avoided or cured, often seen as a sign of weakness or dysfunction. This view is deeply embedded in cultural attitudes toward mental health, where sadness and other negative emotions are often stigmatized. In the workplace, in social settings, and even in personal relationships, there is a strong cultural preference for positivity and emotional well-being, and sadness is often viewed as an impediment to success and happiness. Yet, as emerging research suggests, sadness may actually be a powerful tool for cognitive clarity. Highlighting the tension between societal norms and scientific findings, the tension between public perception and scientific understanding has significant implications for how we treat people suffering from sadness in clinical settings. Traditionally, mental health professionals have focused on alleviating sadness through therapy, medication, and emotional regulation strategies. But if sadness can have cognitive and emotional benefits, should we reconsider our approach to treating? Should we focus on helping individuals harness the insights that sadness offers, rather than simply striving to eliminate it? This shift in perspective is crucial for modern mental health practices. By acknowledging the potential benefits of sadness, we may be able to offer a more nuanced approach to emotional well-being, one that recognizes the complexity of emotions and encourages individuals to engage with them in a healthy and productive way. This expanded paragraph addresses the rising questions and conflicts surrounding the cognitive benefits of sadness, touching on ethical dilemmas, historical examples, cognitive challenges, and the growing tension between public perception and scientific understanding of this complex emotion. It sets the stage for a deeper exploration of how sadness might be both a source of insight and a challenge to emotional health, and how society might need to shift its perspective on this powerful emotion. 2. Create a 1,500+ word paragraph for the climax, big twist, or realization section. Here's how we can dramatically reveal the surprising truth about sadness, weaving in the idea that sadness plays an essential role in our survival mechanisms and emotional clarity, all while introducing the paradox that this emotional state can bring both insight and significant challenges. At the core of our understanding of sadness lies a fundamental shift in how we perceive the emotional experience itself, not just as a fleeting feeling but as a dynamic force that actively reshapes our brain's structure and function. Recent neuroscientific studies have provided profound insights into how sadness evolves the brain's neural pathways, allowing for heightened sensitivity, empathy, and perception. Far from being a passive or solely detrimental emotional state, sadness is an adaptive mechanism that influences our cognitive architecture, allowing us to process complex emotional and environmental stimuli with greater acuity. When we experience sadness, the brain doesn't just shut down or become less functional. On the contrary, sadness triggers a series of neurobiological responses that serve to enhance specific cognitive functions, most notably empathy, attention, and detail-oriented processing. The mechanisms through which sadness reshapes the brain are multifaceted, engaging several brain networks that are crucial for emotional regulation and decision-making. One of the most significant areas activated during sadness is the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive functions like planning, decision-making, and self-reflection. While happiness and excitement tend to broaden our cognitive focus, allowing us to consider a wide range of possibilities, sadness narrows this focus, driving our attention to the finer details that may be crucial for emotional processing. The amygdala, another key region, plays a central role in the emotional processing of sadness. It amplifies our sensitivity to emotional cues, especially those that are negative or distressing, and helps us assess potential threats or emotional losses. But what's truly remarkable is how sadness, through the activation of the amygdala and other emotional centers, heightens our sensitivity not just to immediate threats, but to the subtle patterns in our environment. People in a sad emotional state tend to notice finer details, whether in facial expressions, body language, or even abstract patterns that others might miss. This sharpens their ability to process complex social and environmental information, making them more attuned to both their inner emotional states and the external world. In addition to these areas, the anterior cingulate cortex, which is involved in conflict resolution and cognitive control, also plays a role in the brain's response to sadness. This region helps regulate emotional conflicts and manage competing impulses, allowing the brain to focus on emotionally charged tasks that may require careful consideration. As sadness engages this network, it primes the brain to process emotional and cognitive conflicts in a way that maximizes clarity and precision. Rather than clouding judgment, sadness focuses our cognitive resources on the most pressing emotional issues, enabling more focused problem solving. This reshaping of neural pathways through sadness isn't just a brief or superficial process. The brain undergoes neuroplastic changes, adaptive rewiring, that make it more sensitive to emotional and cognitive inputs, improving its ability to process emotionally laden information. Over time, this increased sensitivity can enhance emotional resilience, empathy, and the ability to perceive the subtleties of the world around us. The more we experience sadness and engage with it consciously, the more our brain adapts, becoming more efficient at handling complex emotional tasks and deepening our connection to our own emotional states as well as those of others. Now that we understand how sadness reshapes neural pathways, the question becomes, how can this scientific insight translate into real-world applications, particularly in mental health treatment and the development of emotional resilience? The growing recognition of sadness as a cognitive enhancer opens up new possibilities for therapeutic interventions and emotional development. If sadness has the potential to sharpen perception, enhance empathy, and improve attention to detail, can we harness these effects in clinical settings to promote emotional growth and cognitive function? One possible application lies in the use of targeted sadness in therapy. While traditional therapeutic approaches have focused on alleviating sadness through techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) or medication emerging, research suggests that allowing sadness to unfold naturally, or even guiding patients to embrace it in a controlled way, could foster more significant emotional processing. For example, in emotion-focused therapy, therapists encourage clients to engage deeply with their emotions, including sadness, rather than suppressing or ignoring them. This engagement allows the individual to process the underlying causes of their emotional distress, fostering insight and emotional clarity that can lead to lasting change. By embracing sadness in therapeutic settings, we could help individuals gain access to their own emotional depth and cognitive clarity. In some cases, this could be as simple as encouraging patients to reflect on the sources of their sadness, allowing them to process grief or loss in a healthy way. In other situations, sadness could be stimulated intentionally through carefully designed exercises, such as revisiting past experiences or contemplating unresolved emotional conflicts. Rather than viewing sadness as a purely negative emotion, these therapies would allow individuals to engage with sadness as a tool for emotional growth, cognitive enhancement, and self-awareness. This approach also ties into the broader field of emotional resilience, the ability to adapt and thrive in the face of adversity. As our understanding of sadness evolves, it becomes clear that emotional resilience doesn't simply come from avoiding or minimizing sadness, but from learning to navigate it in a way that fosters growth. When we face sadness head-on, we train our brain to process difficult emotions more effectively, making us more adaptable and better equipped to deal with future challenges. This emotional flexibility is a critical component of psychological well-being, and targeted sadness interventions could help individuals build this resilience over time. Beyond the clinical setting, the insights into sadness's role in enhancing perception and cognitive function have profound implications for how we view and respond to sadness in society at large. In modern culture, sadness is often stigmatized, treated as something to be fixed or cured as quickly as possible. The overwhelming focus on happiness in consumer culture, social media, and mental health discourse has reinforced the idea that sadness is an emotion to be avoided. Phrases like "don't be sad" or "just cheer up" have permeated everyday life, contributing to the pervasive belief that sadness is inherently wrong or unproductive. However, as we have seen, sadness has the potential to enrich our emotional and cognitive experiences, making us more perceptive, empathetic, and insightful. This revelation challenges the prevailing cultural narrative that equates emotional well-being with constant happiness. If sadness enhances our ability to focus on important details, process complex emotional material, and develop deeper empathy, perhaps it is time to reconsider how we view this emotion. Rather than shaming or avoiding sadness, we could shift toward a more balanced understanding of emotional well-being, one that acknowledges the value of all emotions, including the difficult ones, in the broader societal context. Normalizing sadness as a part of emotional resilience and growth could lead to a more empathetic and insightful world. When we embrace sadness as a natural and valuable emotional experience, we create space for deeper emotional connections, both with ourselves and with others. In relationships, for example, understanding the role of sadness in developing empathy could lead to more supportive and compassionate interactions. Rather than avoiding conversations about loss, grief, or disappointment, we could learn to engage with others in a way that encourages emotional processing and mutual understanding. Furthermore, a society that embraces sadness as part of emotional well-being is likely to foster a greater sense of collective empathy. When individuals are encouraged to express and process sadness, they are better equipped to empathize with the suffering of others. In this way, sadness doesn't just serve individual emotional growth, serves social cohesion. By validating sadness as a crucial part of the human experience, we can create a more compassionate and emotionally intelligent society, where individuals are able to support one another through the highs and lows of life. In practical terms, this shift in societal attitudes toward sadness could lead to changes in how we approach mental health, work-life balance, and even education. Schools, workplaces, and social environments that recognize the importance of emotional processing and resilience would be better equipped to support individuals as they navigate the challenges of modern life. Encouraging the acceptance of sadness, rather than its avoidance, could foster healthier emotional landscapes in both personal and collective spheres. This expanded paragraph offers scientific clarity on how sadness reshapes neural pathways, focusing on heightened empathy, attention, and detail processing. It also delves into real-world applications, suggesting how targeted sadness could be used in therapy to promote cognitive function and emotional resilience. Finally, the section explores the societal relevance of normalizing sadness, arguing that embracing this emotion could lead to a more empathetic and insightful world. 6. To create a 1,500+ word paragraph for the final moment, philosophical close section, I'll guide the audience through a reflective journey that challenges their perceptions of sadness and invites them to see it not just as an uncomfortable emotion, but as a profound, transformative force. This conclusion will blend deep philosophical reflection with emotional insight, leaving the audience with a lingering, thought-provoking question. As we arrive at the conclusion of this exploration, we stand at the intersection of science and philosophy, of emotion and cognition, contemplating the very essence of sadness. Throughout this journey, we have unraveled the ways in which sadness sharpens our perception, heightens our empathy, and enables us to navigate the world with a deeper, more refined understanding. We've examined how sadness influences the brain's neural pathways, reshapes our emotional responses, and even enhances our cognitive abilities. Yet, amid these discoveries, we must ask, what if the most profound insights about life, love, and human existence come from the very moments we fear most, the moments when we are lost, broken, and sad? This question challenges everything we've been taught about the value of emotions. It turns the conventional wisdom on its head, pushing us to reconsider our relationship with sadness not as an enemy to be avoided, but as a crucial part of our emotional and intellectual growth. What if, instead of running from sadness or attempting to suppress it, we were to embrace it as a doorway to clarity? What if we allowed ourselves to be vulnerable in those moments when we are at our lowest, trusting that within the darkness, there lies an opportunity for deeper insight into ourselves, others, and the world around us? Sadness, often viewed as a destructive or debilitating emotion, is paradoxically one of the most constructive forces in human existence. It is through sadness that we come face to face with our greatest vulnerabilities, and it is through this vulnerability that we can experience the most profound growth. Think about the moments in life when we are tested, when we face loss, disappointment, or grief. These moments, though uncomfortable and painful, force us to reckon with who we are, what we value, and what truly matters. They challenge us to see beyond the surface, beyond the fleeting joys and distractions of everyday life, and to connect with something deeper. In this sense, sadness is not a curse, but a catalyst, a transformative experience that allows us to see the world in a way that happiness and comfort never could. The beauty of sadness, then, is that it reveals things that are hidden from the casual observer. When we are sad, our cognitive focus narrows, and we become acutely aware of the details that would otherwise pass us by. We notice the texture of a moment, the subtleties of human interaction, the unspoken words and feelings between people. Sadness sharpens our emotional and sensory perception, allowing us to see life more clearly and deeply. We become more attuned to the fragility of life and the preciousness of every experience. In moments of sadness, we begin to understand the inherent beauty in the complexity of the human condition, the fact that we are capable of both great joy and deep sorrow, and that both are essential to the richness of existence. What does it mean to embrace sadness as a gift? Can we shift our mindset and begin to view it not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as a tool, one that opens our eyes to the beauty and complexity of life in ways happiness cannot? It is in the depths of sadness that we often find clarity about who we are, who we want to be, and what we value most. It's in these dark moments that we may come to realize our own strength, our capacity for resilience, and our ability to overcome even the most difficult circumstances. Perhaps, in the end, it is not the avoidance of sadness that brings us peace, but the ability to accept and even embrace it as part of the human experience. The paradox of sadness lies in its ability to offer both clarity and discomfort. Sadness brings us face to face with the complexities of the human experience, our longing, our suffering, and our need for connection. In embracing this complexity, we gain a more nuanced perspective on life. While happiness often promotes ease and expansion, sadness promotes depth and understanding. Sadness is the mirror that reflects the more intricate parts of our psyche, our emotions, and our relationships. When we experience sadness, we are not just reacting to external events, we are engaging in a deep process of introspection, an opportunity to reframe and reevaluate our lives in a way that only sadness can inspire. This act of reflection, the willingness to sit with our sadness rather than escape from it, allows us to examine the undercurrents of our emotional landscape. It helps us understand why we feel the way we do, what needs are not being met, and what lessons we might be overlooking in our pursuit of happiness. The clarity that arises from sadness is not superficial or fleeting, it is rooted in the truth of our experience. In contrast to the transient nature of happiness, sadness often stays with us, lingering and evolving, until we have fully processed the emotional and intellectual lessons it has to offer. It is in this slow, deliberate process that we find the seeds of growth and transformation. So, we are left with a lingering invitation, an invitation to reflect on our relationship with sadness. Can we, as individuals and as a society, learn to embrace sadness as a gift? Can we accept sadness not as a burden, but as a tool that opens our eyes to the deeper truths of our lives? The key is not to resist sadness, to push it away, or to dismiss it as something to be eradicated. Rather, it is to sit with it, to allow it to unfold in its own time, and to learn from it. It is to recognize that in our most broken, vulnerable moments, there may be an opportunity for profound growth and insight. We all know the familiar adage, time heals all wounds, but perhaps what heals the wounds is not just the passage of time, but the wisdom gained through experiencing sadness and reflecting on its lessons. As we sit with sadness, as we let it wash over us and allow it to stir within us, we make space for clarity, for truth, and for a deeper connection to ourselves and the world. It is in this space that we come to understand that the beauty of life is not found in its perfection, but in its imperfection. Its fragility, its transience, and its capacity to bring both joy and sorrow. Sadness, in its complexity, teaches us about the human condition in a way that no other emotion can. It offers us a counterpoint to happiness, a reminder that the richness of life is not found in constant pleasure or ease, but in the full spectrum of human emotions. It is only by embracing sadness as a part of the whole that we can truly understand the depths of love, connection, and purpose. So, as we reflect on our own experiences with sadness, we are left with this thought, ***, can we learn to embrace sadness not as something to be feared or avoided, but as a gift, a tool, that brings us closer to the beauty and complexity of life? Perhaps, in the end, sadness is not just something we endure, but something we need to embrace, ***. It is, after all, through sadness that we come to know ourselves more deeply, connect with others more authentically, and discover the profound truths that underlie the human experience. The path to emotional and intellectual clarity is not paved only with happiness, but with the willingness to face sadness, to embrace it, and to allow it to illuminate the parts of life that are hidden from the bright, optimistic light of happiness. As you reflect on this journey, ask yourself, ***, what if sadness is not just something to be feared, but something to be appreciated for the wisdom it brings? What if, by embracing the full range of human emotions, including sadness, we become more whole, ***, more aware, and more capable of experiencing the true depth of life? In this acceptance lies a profound truth, that ***, in our most vulnerable, broken moments, we may find the key to understanding the beauty and complexity of the world, and our place within it. This expansive philosophical reflection challenges the audience to reconsider their relationship with sadness, inviting them to see it not as a burden but as a source of growth, insight, and emotional depth. It wraps the exploration of sadness in a thought-provoking conclusion that leaves the audience contemplating the role of sadness in their own lives, while also offering an invitation to embrace this often feared emotion as a profound tool for understanding life.